Hi everybody, it's Keren here from tuppencecoloured.co.uk. Thank you very much for joining me today. Today I have been playing with some of the items that are in the current autumn-winter catalogue, but I've also been using some of the old favourites that are in the annual catalogue to make this Christmas card. And if you stay with me, I'll show you how I made it. Here's what I used to make my card. The card base is a piece of thick whisper white and it's scored 3, 2, 1. Here's what I'm using to make my card. My card base is a piece of whisper white and I've cut it to 4 inches by 11.5, and I'm going to score and fold it halfway, which will be at 5 3/4 of an inch. I've got a piece of whisper white. Actually, the piece I'm using is going to be quite a bit bigger than this. This is just a little scrap for a sample, and I'm going to be using that to do some sponging on. And I'm also going to have a piece of grey granite for the front of my card, and again, this isn't the size that I'm going to be using. I'm going to cut it to 3 and normally I do 3 3/4, but actually this time I'm going to do it at 3 7/8 by 5 5/8. So just going to make it just a little bit smaller than the front of my base card. I've got some moss green for stamping and die cutting. I'm going to use my layering ovals framelets, and I'm going to use these dies, which are called, the name is escaping me. Where's it gone? It's over here in the woods. I'm going to be using some of those dies. They come as part of a bundle with this stamp set, Winter Woods, and I'm going to be using the stamps from here as well. I'm going to be using the Softly Falling embossing folder. I'm going to use the sentiment and the little snowflakes from this one, which is called Beautiful Blizzard. I've got Versamark, I've got Whisper White ink, I've got embossing powder, and I've got a little bottle of this, the Frost White shimmer paint, which is absolutely gorgeous. As well as these things, I'm also going to be using some different coloured inks for sponging my Whisper White card, and I'll tell you what I'm using when I get to those. So that's the things that I'm going to be needing for this card. I've stamped the fir tree twice with my Mossy Meadow ink, and I've also stamped up a load of these little fir branches because I had space on the paper and I don't want to waste it. So I'm going to go over to the Big Shot and I'm going to cut my 2 trees out using those 2 dies, and you get 3 of these little ones that fit around the fir branches. Okay, so I'm going to run that through my Big Shot in a couple of passes, and I will cut out all of these extra bits as well, and I will be back. And I'm back from doing my die cutting, and this piece, the smaller piece, has got little cutout pieces in it that you can just fluff up to make the tree look a bit fuller. So to fluff those up, I'm just rubbing over the back of the piece with my flower shaping tool. I'm just poking those pieces up. And if you're looking closely, you may see that I didn't do such a brilliant job of cutting this one out. I was a little bit too far over to that side with the die, but it's not going to matter because we're going to give it a little bit of frostiness. So this is the Frost White shimmer paint, and it is absolutely gorgeous. And you shake it up well, and when you do that, there's enough in the top of the bottle that you can do this. Okay, so I'm just dabbing little bits onto the branches. not being too careful about it, just dabbing it here, dabbing it there, and down the sides as well. And along the edge there. Right, so put that one side to dry just for a second, and I'll just pick up a little bit more paint, and I'm just going to come down the outside edge of this piece. Kind of just like that. Again, just along the bottom edge, just to give it that little frosted look. Put the top back on the paint. And this will take a couple of seconds to dry, but it's dry enough to handle now. So I'm just going to run a little spot of my liquid adhesive along the edges here, just catching it. I don't want gallons because I'm usually over generous with this kind of thing, and you really don't need to be. So I'm just pushing those two pieces together. Just squish this one in slightly to give it a nice curve, and then that is going to sit on one side for the paint and for the adhesive to set. I have a piece of Whisper White, and I've started with pineapple punch ink, and I've just put it down onto my sponge mat, and splodge mat I should say, and I've got one of my sponge rollers, and I'm just going to pick up that ink, and I'm not going right the way across the sponge roller, I'm just kind of going maybe 3/4 of the way. I'm just spreading that out on my mat. Now I'm going to come into my card, and which way am I going to go? I'm going to go this way, I think. I'm just flicking it across. Just flicking in the colour. As you can see, I'm getting streaks along there, and that's fine, I want those. Okay, pop that one on one side just for a moment, and next I'm going to go with some balmy blue. And I've got another one of the sponge rollers, and same thing again. I'm just picking up the colour on the roller, but not going all the way to the outside. And this roller's, it's stained pink, but that's okay, it's fine. And that's going to be plenty of colour for what I want. And I'm going to come in again from the same side, so I'm going that way. I'll turn that round, and I'm going to pick up more of the balmy blue, and I'm just going to sponge in on this side as well. That's not like it. Why didn't I do that from the beginning? I don't know. Okay, now at this stage it looks a mess, but keep going. And I'm going to go and get a cloth, and I'm going to clean up that colour. Okay, so now I've got some Blueberry Bliss, and I'm going to use the same ink pad that I just, sponge roller that I just used. I'm staying within the blue family, and I'm kind of going on top of it anyway. Okay, and stamping again. To cover that over so I don't get ink all over my hands. So now that's starting to look something like the way I want it. And this time it's Granny Gorgeous Grape. And I could take my ink directly from the ink pad, but doing it this way means that I won't accidentally contaminate my ink pad. Okay. Now I deliberately cut my paper larger than I knew I was going to need to give myself plenty of scope to do this kind of thing. Okay, and I'm holding it down with a bit of paper just to try and not get ink all over my mitts. I don't want to cover up that yellow altogether. I've got a nice light streak in the middle there, which I'm kind of liking. And I've got some spots down there, which I'm not too bothered about. And okay, so once I trim that off and get it to where I want it, I think I'm pretty happy with that. Before I put this on one side for the ink to dry properly, I've got some of the Champagne Mist shimmer paint in this little spray bottle. I just bought, I wanted one that was a bit bigger than the Stampin' Spritzers. And I'm just going to give it a spritz. And the nozzle on this one's quite squirty, so I'm going to go from quite high up. And give it a coat of shimmer all the way over. And all I've done is I've mixed some of the Champagne Mist paint, yes it is paint, in alcohol. And I've used alcohol because it dries quicker and it disturbs the underlying colour a little bit less. And I'm just going to leave that aside to dry, and that is very, very shimmery. I've cut the aperture in the granite grey card with the largest of the oval frame. It's the largest of the smooth ones, of course. And now I'm going to emboss it with my embossing folder. So I've got my softly falling embossing folder here, and I'm going to line my card up in it with it's going to be the top of the card at the open side of the embossing folder. All right, so that the little snowflakes get less frequent as you get towards the bottom of the card. I have my standard platform. I haven't got any shims, any adapters, just the plain platform as it comes. And I've got one cut plate. And there goes my embossing folder, and another cut plate goes on top of it. Now this is one of the old style embossing folders. It's not one of the dynamic ones, so I do need two cut plates. If it was a dynamic embossing folder, I would only need one cut plate. So I'm going to go over to Big Shot and I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to stamp a sentiment at the bottom of the grey granite card, so I'm going to begin by giving it a jolly good coat of Embossing Buddy. Got my sentiment lined up on my Stamparatus, and I'm using my Stamparatus because I've already done the embossing on this card, and I don't want to mess it up by stamping it in the wrong place. So I'm going to give that a jolly good press down just to make sure that the ink is taken. And I've got a good impression there, so going to bring in my embossing powder, which is my mixed embossing powder that I made by mistake. It's a mixture of gold and silver. And I've got a bit where I don't want it there, so I've just got a little dry paintbrush just to flick away those bits. And I'm going to bring in my heat gun, put it onto high power. I've trimmed my sponged and spritzed card down to the size that I wanted. I wanted to keep that bit in the middle in the picture. And I've got some Whisper White ink, and I've just mounted this little stamp here onto my ink block, and just a piece of scrap to stamp off on. There we go. And just stamp off and stamp on. And again, turn it around, and again. Stamp off, and stamp on, and stamp on. And I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to start assembling the card. So this is my aperture with the greetings. So I'm going to put some fast fuse around the edge of the aperture, and yes, I know it's retired, I know it's no longer available, but I got a load of it before they stopped selling it, and I've got a mucky mark on there. I have to do something about that in a minute. Alright, so let me bring this in. Okay, let's put the whole thing onto the front of my Whisper White card. So it's just an ordinary piece of thick Whisper White, and scored and folded. So it's cut to 4 inches by 5 3/4, and scored and folded it at the sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about here. It's 4 inches by 11.5, and I've scored and folded it at the 5 3/4 mark. And I think I should have said that at the beginning of the video. So that now is looking very pretty. Right, now I want to get rid of that mark before I go any further. And I've got my bag of tricks here. Mono sand eraser. Never leave home without it. Look at that. All gone. And I'm going to use a little bit of liquid adhesive for this. Now I've got a spot there, a spot there, or a splat that I want to cover up. But for the rest of it, I want to be able to see quite a bit of that background. And that, I think, is my finished card. And there it is, that is the finished card, and I'm really pleased with the way it turned out, and I hope you like it as well. And if so, I'd be ever so pleased if you'd click that like button and maybe even subscribe to my channel. Go on, be a devil. But that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope I'll see you again sometime soon. Bye bye.